Today's landmark decision to overturn Roe versus Wade is sending shockwaves across the nation.
Now to break down more of the legal and the political aspects of all of this and what could happen next, we're joined by analysts Wendy Patrick and Laura Fink. Ladies, glad to have you here on the floor with us to discuss this. Laura, I'm going to start with you on this particular topic. Let's just go ahead and stare right at November of this year. How does what happened today possibly affect the elections?
Well, I think, Heather, that's a great question. I think you have to start from the fundamentals, which is that this is the first time in American history that the Supreme Court has rolled back a fundamental right for more than half the population. And so, of course, that will have impact on ballot boxes. We know that women's lives will be in danger in many cases as a result of this decision, and it will be litigated on the campaign trail with candidates talking about the implication for women's lives and really investing in speaking to voters about the real impact of this issue, not just on abortion rights, but the precedent for gay rights, for contraception, and for other fundamental privacy rights that are attached to that same precedent that they essentially eliminated today.
Wendy, I'm going to ask you, 22 states have trigger laws that will make abortion illegal basically immediately or restrict abortion access. How quickly, practically, will we see those states start to enforce those laws? And what kind of penalties are we talking about?
Well, great questions. I hope you're going to give me the whole rest of the hour to answer them, because the answer is it varies widely state by state. We've already seen some headlines of some states that have actually criminalized abortion. On the other hand, we've seen some even red states, conservative states, that have outlawed abortion up to a point. They permit it in certain circumstances, life of the mother, rape, incest. So the bottom line is it is all over the board. But the speed, Carlo, I think we're going to actually be able to see that very quickly. Why? Because the writing was on the wall. I would say even before the leak, just given the 6-3 conservative majority of the Supreme Court, I think a lot of people were already preparing, and especially when you had the Texas ruling, remember the heartbeat bill upheld by the Supreme Court, that was a blueprint for red states. So behind the scenes, they were already putting in place what now can be easily triggered in some of the states that have those laws ready.
There's a lot to this, but I just want Wendy real quick to unpack this, and I want to get back to Laura before we run out of time here. But Wendy, talk about John Roberts and all of this. First, we had this decision leaked. Then it appears that he wanted to find some sort of middle ground. That was criticized, in the opinion, by Samuel Alito. What's your thoughts on that?
Heather, that has been one of the things we've been following right from the beginning, because remember, he wanted to basically uphold the Mississippi 15-week ban, but he didn't want to overturn Roe, and that's exactly what he did. And that's why you see him in the 6-3 majority, but not in the 5-4. So it's kind of confusing, but if you read the opinion, which, by the way, is fascinating, not just to lawyers, but just to anybody that's been following this litigation, he basically was very upset at what happened with the leak, but he voted his conscience just like he said he would in joining the majority and upholding Dobbs, but basically not overturning Roe.
It makes the question of who leaked that document even more interesting. Laura, I want to drill down a little more on the election. The New York Times is reporting that President Trump has been telling people that this overturning of Roe versus Wade is going to be bad for Republicans. Right now we have high inflation, high gas prices. Things are going bad for Democrats ahead of the November midterms. Is this the kind of thing that could turn the tide?
In many districts, yes. When you look, Carlo, it's such a great question because there are swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin. These are Senate seats that could hinge on this very issue, and certainly House districts within that. Now, even in the face of the sort of kitchen table issues that we talk about, this fundamental right, which I would say, I think the recent polling shows upwards of 60% of Americans should believe that this should be legal. So that's going to have an impact, no question. And both Republicans and Democrats are going to have to face it on the campaign trail.
And Wendy, let's go back to you with this particular point here. What exactly did the Supreme Court decide on here? Because there were a lot of people using the terms that abortion is a constitutional right, and now that's tossed out. But sort of give it to us in layman's terms. What was this decision?
This decision basically did say that abortion is not a constitutional right, and the fact that it's been recognized as such for half a century doesn't make it right. And that's what Justice Alito said, and that's actually what he was asked about at his confirmation hearing way back in the day, is you know, there can be changes to laws like this. And this doesn't criminalize abortion. It doesn't it doesn't outlaw abortion across the nation. It simply says state by state, elect lawmakers that are in tune with your ideology if you want to live in that particular state. That's why we keep talking about November. That's what this ruling held. It's the state's decision.
It also gives states some other guidance. Judge Thomas wrote, in future cases, we should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. Is that a signal to conservatives in conservative states to push cases forward that would ultimately pull back or ban gay sex, make same-sex marriages illegal, would also make contraceptives illegal? Those are some of the cases. Those are some of the issues that are related to those specific cases.
I'll take that one. Absolutely. I think those are the things that I was referring to, Carlo, in my statements earlier, because all of those things hinge on the right to privacy. And because this eliminates that as codified in the Constitution, it's saying the right to privacy doesn't exist in our Constitution. So those fundamental freedoms, those sort of the right to bodily autonomy, to privacy with respect to contraception, to privacy with respect to who you marry or who you have an intimate relationship with, those are all things that are now on the chopping block. And while Justice Thomas's opinion is not precedent, it does exactly wave a red cape in front of the states, just enticing them to place those cases in front of this Supreme Court.
Wendy, why don't you weigh in on that as well? Thank you. Yeah.
I think that is the question that a lot of people were asking even back when this was leaked. And Justice Alito, he obviously forecast that this would be a huge issue because he wrote into the opinion that this is an opinion that only addresses the constitutional right to abortion and no other right. And he said, even went further than that. He said nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. So Justice Thomas's dissent is now what folks are seizing on and basically looking and saying, well, what do we do with that? Well, it's not really a dissent as much as a concurring opinion, but what he is saying is not the view of the other justices. So moving forward, Justice Alito, writing for the majority, basically said the rest of the court is not willing to go that far. We hate slippery slopes in the law. We'll see where this one goes, if anywhere. Yeah,
we'll see if that stands up once they get a court case that deals with those issues in front of them. Wendy, Laura, thank you so much for your time today. A historic day, an interesting day. We'll have a lot more conversations in the next few months, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Heather.